Hi everybody, my name is Barry Schwartz and this is Search Buzz Video Recap. Today is Friday, January 26th, and this is the Search 29th actually. And this is the search news we covered over at the Search Roundtable at seroundtable.com. First up, it seems like it was a relaxing weekend and a fairly relaxing week. Not many fluctuations, not many changes in the Google search results, not many ranking changes up and down. I've seen some rumors and discussions around local changes and some other changes, but really it hasn't been that drastic. We are expecting the Penguin update any day now, but still it doesn't seem like there's much discussion around that. So that's good news in terms of being a relaxing week. Matt Cutts of Google was on This Week in Google on the Twit Network with Leo Laporte and friends. And Matt basically said he's obviously no longer, he's still currently on leave with Google and he's no longer involved in day-to-day at Google, but his interpretation of what happened and why there were so many fluctuations in the past 2 weeks was, as he said, was because there was probably a code freeze towards the end of all of December, and then all the programmers and all the engineers are programming stuff and changing things, and then they can't release it. So in early January, they kept releasing stuff. Maybe all that stuff was released, and that's why people saw major fluctuations. So there's Matt Cutts discussing that. If you want to listen to all of it, he actually discussed a lot of things there. Definitely take a look at that. It's nice to see him talking about the SEO industry and the SEO community. This week, Google released a brand new Google Webmaster guidelines. They revised a lot of the design-oriented guidelines, not necessarily the quality guidelines, but the overall technical or design guidelines in the Webmaster guidelines. I spotted that in the morning. First one to spot it, yay me. And then Patrick Sexton went ahead and wrote what the specific changes were in those guidelines. So if you want to go ahead and check out, obviously the new guidelines and so forth, take a look at it. I wrote about it yesterday, January 28th, and Patrick went ahead and did a very detailed analysis, line by line, of what actually changed before and after, what was added new, what was removed, and so forth, so you can actually go line by line to see it. Truth is, you really don't have to read it. There was really not much that's changed that you should know about that will actually impact significantly. It's good to read anyway, but in terms of changes and so forth, it wasn't that significant. Google said it could take months and months for you to update an image in the Google search engine. So Google processes and indexes new images very, very quickly. But if I would go ahead and take an image that already has been discovered by Google and try to update that file with a new image file with the same image URL, that could take Google months and months to actually update, according to Google's John Mueller. The reason is, he said, Google, typically images don't change that often, so if I take this image, keep the exact same URL for it, and just make it a completely different image, Google image search will take a while to actually update that image. Google said they hope to go ahead and add JSON LD support for rich snippets and structured data, so that's coming soon, hopefully really soon. Google also said that valid HTML, we covered this back in July, but it came up again because of the Webmaster guidelines changes, that valid HTML is not required for rankings, but it can hurt with your structured data. Google sometimes has a problem with invalid HTML and structured data messing up that stuff, as well as your mobile friendliness. So if you do have invalid HTML, it could hurt with those types of things, but it doesn't really impact your rankings per se. It's not a direct ranking factor. Google said they will probably go ahead and step up their structured data support for this over the year. Basically, they'll probably use it more and more, maybe provide more implementation methods and so forth. Google's John Mueller said this morning in a Hangout. He said, I suspect over the course of this year, we will definitely be seeing more structured data because it really helps a lot to understand and discover the different pages and so forth. So you'll probably see a lot more from Google around that in the upcoming year around structured data. Google also said that links in footers and site-wide links and so forth are way less. This is probably obvious to all of you out there, but it was said twice, once by Zeneb of Google, who basically said site-wide header and footer links are not given that much weight, and John Mueller said it as well in a Hangout earlier this week. Again, nothing new, but just figured share it because it's documented by Google. Google said you don't have to follow the links in your related blog post stuff. So if you have in the bottom of your blog post a related post at the bottom, You don't have to follow those, even if it's automated. It's usually topical content, and it's usually pretty good. Google said that linking outwards does not necessarily benefit the website that's linking out. So external links are not a ranking factor per se, meaning if I link here, this link over here links to somebody else, me linking to that person doesn't help me. It obviously helps them, but it doesn't necessarily help me. The content of that link obviously is content, and that's obviously a ranking factor, but the link itself is not a ranking factor. Google said when they have the choice, and if they see two pages on two different URLs are exactly the same, they will typically pick the shorter URL. Of course, that's for canonicalization purposes, making sure they have one piece of content. So going shorter with the URL is obviously better. That usually comes with adding parameters and so forth. Google said that if you have a manual action and you submit a reconsideration request, don't submit the reconsideration request in a language that is different from your website language. So if you have a website in Hebrew, do not write your reconsideration request in English, because he basically said, and I'm going to show you, it's a brilliant way to shoot yourself in the foot. He goes on to explain that, don't worry, we will still process it, but it's going to take longer because we have to find somebody who reads that language. So that's another point. Google started sending out AMP accelerated mobile pages notifications to publishers who they suspect are news publishers. I personally didn't get one yet for this site, but they are sending it out. Glenn Gabe has a screenshot telling them Google has detected news content on your site. Google has detected that news content on your site might benefit from enhanced exposure on Google search if you implement AMP. Basically saying you'll get better exposure if you implement AMP, and here's how to do it. So Google started sending it out. That's happening in about a month from now in terms of the AMP crossover. Google AdWords added custom formulas to their custom columns, so you can actually go ahead and do some math in your custom formula columns. Here's an example. Plus, minus, multiplication, division, and so forth, percentages and so forth. You can actually customize how the custom column works in your AdWords reports, which is pretty cool. Google also released the AdWords iOS app, the official iOS app yesterday. It was in beta about a month and a half ago, and now it's officially out, which lets you manage your AdWords campaigns directly on iOS. And finally, Google's AdSense publishers seem to have been waiting for a really long time to get paid this month. Usually it happens on the 21st. I got my payment on the 21st, but a lot of publishers are saying, hey, we still haven't received our payments, what's going on? And Google has not really responded to them. In any event, thanks so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable, SERoundtable.com. Again, today is Friday, January 29th. Everyone have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next. Bye.